I'm gonna admit all. And
Great.
okay, so it is 10:01. I'd like to welcome everyone to this fourth conversation on AI from an Edgewalkers lens. Thank everyone for joining, and I am here with Prasad and Bill, and the three of us, and also Brian might join in a bit later. We've been having these conversations, for now 4 months, where we just take a minute to connect. It's also an opportunity to remember what it is to be an edgewalker, not to take some time to just pause. And so, yeah, Prasad, Bill, welcome.
Thank you.
Great to be back.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Ximena, I'm here also.
Yeah,
Brian.
Brian, you're here. Sorry, I didn't see you come in. Hi, welcome. And we're also here joined by Brian Gorman.
Right. One of the things maybe what we thought we could do, as Ximena was mentioning, this we can do it as a dialogue between all of us. Maybe each of us will take a minute first of all, a minute of silence, as Ximena will say, and then if we can go around the room and ask, what is keeping you alert and awake and interested in these conversations about AI, what we are doing? What is your point of curiosity? If you can mention that sharply, then we can continue the dialogue and build on it and have this much more of a dialogue among all of us. Is that the right way to say it, Ximena? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Prasad.
Bill and Brian, back to you.
Wonderful. So let's just start with a minute of silence, of stillness. So just gonna give a couple of prompts, and then we'll just sit in silence, and then we'll come back and start this dialogue. You can keep your eyes open, close your eyes. You can stand up, sit down, however you want to do this. So I invite you to bring your attention to your breath. And notice how you're sitting. If you're slouched over, sitting up straight. Notice the seat that is holding you. And as you notice this, notice how quick or how slow your breath is. If you're breathing through your nose, through your mouth. And let's sit in silence for a minute. Okay. So welcome once again. I know that this short minute just helped me really arrive and be fully present. I have the tendency of being all over the place. So thank you all for joining us in that arrival, to where we are now. Okay, so as Prasad shared at the beginning, we thought we can go around and share what, in the 3 years that Gen AI tools have been out, what pebbles in our shoes have we developed? Have we willingly or unwillingly, added to our lives? And so then we can, take the conversation from there. And just to reiterate that this is a dialogue, not just, between Bill, Brian, Prasad, and me, but also we want this to be a conversation with everyone, because the technology is developing so quickly, and there's just this barrage of articles and information and, new versions of the tools, and having, an hour to just come together, sit with each other, ask questions, listen, connect, not for productivity purposes, not to acquire new practice, best practices, and just to, just take a minute to breathe. Take this conversation to just breathe and connect with this, rapidly evolving technology. So opening the floor.
Start. I'm actually sneaking away from a editing conference to be here a little bit before I have to sneak back. And I just think it's a timely question because I'm kind of processing it from both a career in writing and editing and then being a doctoral student and what it means for research. And so I feel like my worlds are colliding with AI, like all of them at the same time. And it's trying to figure, I'm personally, so I had a conversation with someone who is an editor, and she edits dissertations. She made a business of 30 years of editing dissertations. And the conversation she had and what stuck with me was that she's put a line in the sand personally in that work. And so people that she's done business with, it's been respectful. Some have gone to other people who are willing to not um engage. She engages in a very different way than some other editors who are more open, I think, and more expansive in the use of AI and leveraging AI. And there's just, she, like I said, she's kind of drawn her own line, and she said she's come to terms with the fact that that means that people she's enjoyed working with she may no longer work with, at least for now. And what it made me start thinking about and what we talked about is like I'm still figuring out where my own line is. Like right now, it's pretty clear, but I just our whole team was let go in June. So I'm kind of forced now to think about future work. And I've been able to skate around it, but now people expect you to leverage it in some kind of way. So I'm personally figuring out where my line is, but I can't imagine, it's hard for me to imagine going through the rigor that's expected in academia and taking what I feel like today are shortcuts, you know, um, but trying to reconcile that. So that's why I'm loving this sessions because I'm learning more and more about other people's viewpoints and experience and trying to figure out, like I said, that line for myself.
Maisha, it's so great to see you. Maisha and I was a graduate assistant to Maisha's cohort it's many,
Oh,
Yes.
now it's many years ago, but oh, it's great.
It's
Welcome,
amazing to
Maisha. It's great
see
to hear you.
you.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to be reconnected.
Yes.
You have a very good point, Maisha. Let us hear a few more people, but I think you are raising some very important question about uh, what do editors do? How do we draw a line? How do we work with AI? It's a good question. I'm sure Bill and Brian also are thinking about, but let's get a few more thoughts on what are you working with and what are you experiencing with life. Linda?
So I'm an attorney, and a couple of weeks ago, there was a case that was decided where the attorney had relied on AI
Mhm.
and had put cases in his brief that did not substantiate the
Yes.
position that he was taking. The court fined him or sanctioned him, or the attorney, $10,000 and made a referral to the State Bar of California about that. And apparently took it into consideration when they were awarding attorney fees to the other side, because the other side didn't alert the court to the fact that these cases didn't jive. I belong to a listserv of attorneys all over the United States, and about 6 months ago, somebody posted a case that they had run through AI, and there were all these cases that AI had come up with. And so all the attorneys from the different states were then doing the research about the cases that were cited, and the majority of them were wrong. So that's kind of the pebble in my shoe, is trying to figure out how to incorporate AI in my practice. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Linda. Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead, John.
Yeah, John had. I thought I had a pebble in my shoe, but then on further reflection, it's a brick. And I'll tell you that I've had like the most emotionally disruptive reactions to this whole AI train wreck. And I finally figured out that it's because it's the brick problem. If you invite 1,000 people to come look at a brick, many of them, because humans are often of a sweet nature, will talk about how a brick can be used to build a great edifice, a hospital, a home that will resist the storm. And there's a few people that are wounded and hurt and angry who will talk about how there's nothing handier than a brick to pick up and throw at someone's head so that you can crush the adversary and kill them. And I view AI the same way. So I'm now promoting a tool that I've built that has AI baked inside that's intended to globally spread the adoption of peace as an alternative over conflict. And I'll go ahead and post the link in the chat.
Please.
And, if anyone wants to use it right now, we've got funding to sponsor the use. And if it sparks interest, I'm happy to, chat with people about it, because it's baked in with a lot of history that goes back to my days in high school when I first got on the topic. And I'll even say, before I stop speaking too much, that before ChatGPT emerged, I was on contract, even though I have no degree in the area, with a renowned medical school to produce master's curriculum course content to persuade public health master's folks that they needed to get their head around how AI was going to be a big deal. Because to me, for anyone, no matter whether you're just fired or looking to convert to a different life and a different future, the ability to look at the brick of AI and see it as a building brick rather than a weapon is a colossal advantage. To be complete, I'll just say that I used to be a partner VP at a huge consulting firm, and now I'm not that, and I don't have teams of expert people, but I use AI to do in minutes what I used to get done in weeks. And when you use it as a brick to build, freaking awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim, I think you have had a hand up.
Yeah, thank you. This is my first of these conversations I've been able to join, and so it's good to be here. Thank you for hosting them. I'm pretty sure it was an Edgewalker post in my email that came that related something to the concept of the work in Edgewalker worlds of expanding consciousness and focusing on business as an opportunity to expand consciousness, both individually and collectively. And something about the role that AI may play, not in necessarily getting in the way, but actually potentially supporting the advancement of consciousness. So that's the question. I don't know if it's even a pebble yet. But it's like that. I'm like, now that's fascinating to me, because up to this point I feel like I've been kind of lucky enough to avoid having to use AI or being involved with the world of AI and the question about AI. And yes, I mean, I grew up with the Battlestar Galactica of the 1970s when, the Cylons were going to take over. And that was sort of the essence of, the machines all of a sudden gain enough consciousness and intelligence to take over everything. So there's been that fear, kind of like the fear of nuclear war since I was a child. And yeah, for me, a lot of the focus around the expansion of consciousness is the choice we make that you were just talking about, John. Do I orient from AI as this horrible, evil thing that's going to destroy humanity, or is there an opportunity there to be able to do, like you said, things that used to take you hours done in seconds or minutes? And how do we hold the both of those things as a psychosynthesis oriented person? Asa Jolie, who developed psychosynthesis, talked about holding both and as an improviser also, how do we hold both of these together and hold them together so that we don't get stuck in the trap of the dualistic right or wrong, good or bad, evil and good, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, Luis.
Val, go first. Val, you go.
I live in Rochester, New York. I have just completed 50 years as a Presbyterian pastor, ordained. I'm still active. That doesn't mean I'm not active anymore. But being Presbyterian, I have a tendency to approach things with my mind as well as my heart. And I also have a strong sense of always looking at the ethical and human components of things. I have to say that I'm kind of a Neanderthal with AI. I've been a part of these partly because of Judy's invitation. But I have resisted getting involved in AI, and for a couple of reasons. The first reason is I resist that when I do my computer work, whether it's on my phone or on this computer, AI is now intruding, and with what purports to be the best interests of supporting me, intrudes whether I want it or not. It completes my sentences when I write an email. It completes my sentences when I write a sermon. And there's a part of me which is rooted in Presbyterian thought that I don't like that. But I also am worried that everything in our world today is commodified. And as an example, I read John, and John, this is not a criticism, it's an observation. If this sparks your interest and you might like to be a collaborator with actual benefits, that's a commodification statement. I wonder who's making money from AI. I understand from my computer friends the push to develop and develop and develop as a thought experience of their own. But everything in this world of ours is commodified. Everything has a price. Everything is done to produce something of benefit to the person who's producing it. Where is the ethics behind all of this? My thought experience, which started this morning about thinking about this, is I plan to do some thinking about what the version of AI was in various developments of humanity. What was AI for a community of people walking the savannas in Africa 30 million years ago? What was AI in the Middle Ages? What was AI when the American Revolution was doing? What was the equivalent of that which was beyond us to guide us and improve us? I don't know if that'll go anywhere, but if I were going to write a doctoral dissertation, that would be a subject that I would be interested in. And how the ethics of that go year by year, decade by decade, eon by eon, and what the implications are. I see nothing positive in it right now because I see it as another thing that wants to pretend that it is the divine that can guide us. I also know that most human beings, and this is cynical, but most that I've known, especially in the church, are fundamentally lazy. And they will respond to anything that is a utilitarian thing that will help me, quote, do better, whether it's a congregation or an individual. And I am greatly disturbed about that. But I come here, two concepts that I prize in spiritual development are holy curiosity and a beginner's mind. So I'm trying to keep a beginner's mind as I participate in all of this and have holy curiosity about what is happening. So that's my response. And Tim, I'm glad to see a partner in the Presbyterian minister. Put in the chat who your dad was, because I might have run into him. Thank you.
Thank you, Val.
Luis, you had a hand up.
Wow, I did. And every time I listen instead of speak, I learn more. It's a wonderful learning for me. Ooh. Because John, what you've said, and Val, what you've said, yes, everybody else too, but those two powerful statements really opened me to share two things. One, I come to a lot of these because of Judy, and I come to this one because it's the first time I noticed that Ximena is helping to facilitate it, and Ximena, thanks to Judy, has become a member of the Conscious Leadership Guild, in which I got to know how wonderful she is, but also just being with each of you speaking the way you have is just as wonderful as Conscious Leadership Guild is, to have individuals who are so present. So some of you should join. However, or in addition, the deepest part of me that was touched by what John and Val said is that I am always really amazed at how many things are either used to serve or to abuse. Every single thing that's created, and every single human and every technology. And it astounds me because I guess the way I was raised with such love and ethics, I didn't even know. I literally was raised with such privilege of love and ethics. I didn't even know that there was an evil side to anyone or an abuse of any kind. And the more I discover in this case how AI has miraculous opportunity, since just as an example, I've recovered from stage 4 cancer and survivor of the ventilator in 2020, and on and on and on, like many of us have. And I'm astounded at the gift through which I received life. You know, and having received life 3 times after 3 near deaths, nothing touches me more than human heartfelt interaction. To see one another and be seen by one another. And this has been my profession, is to do the most personal work within myself first, and then to help others do it. Precisely because all the technology and all the doing is so often, almost always, leaves behind the personal connection at the soul level of really being with one another. And so I also hate the way not just AI invades me, but Google invades me. I do everything possible to avoid it and to try to stay on my own without this violation. Anyway, that's why I'm here, and I'm not only here because I'm fascinated by the topic and how we can possibly manage to change enough people so that they only serve instead of abuse, or even how to set rules or laws or something to limit it. But even those conversations are in the head, whereas what I enjoy most in the last sentence is just being here with such conscious people. Thank you. Patrick, next.
Hi, everyone. This is, I think, my first time joining the group. I was starting my morning. I'm based in Denver, and went into my email box, and this meeting was the first thing at the top of my email list. And I'm in a mountain time, and it said 9 a.m. Eastern time, and I was like, maybe I should check it out. So here I am.
Welcome.
And thank you. For 24 years, I've been a consultant, executive coach, doing a lot of professional services work. My work now is really focused on helping leaders be more human and how they interact with each other, and help teams, I would describe as being more human. And I feel called to humanize work, so that both people and businesses thrive. But this conversation and the conversation about AI is one that I feel very curious about. And the things that have been said, in a lot of ways, I've heard some elements of, but I don't know that I've heard it always shared so eloquently. But what I thought I would do is just share a experience I recently had, and it was actually maybe two experiences. One is I do think, and I do understand that AI is um, intimidating, and AI, just as others have said, it in some ways is intrusive, and that it is completing sentences for us. And I hear a lot about in the business world how people are using it, and there's just a way in which AI presents information that is overly verbose, is overly complex sometimes, and lacks a human element. And maybe that gets to my point, and that is, I see a possibility for AI to, in some sense, return us to ourselves. And what I often have noticed over my years working in the business world is that we see each other often, too often, like machines, and we treat each other like machines. And there's a way in which work is done in a very transactional way. And I see something starting to emerge where people are starting to value the human qualities more because they're being made distinct from AI. And I'm also noticing that AI is in some sense trying to catch up with us on the core pieces of being human, like being able to express itself in ways that are empathetic, express itself with some emotional intelligence, and people are trying to make AI have the qualities have our best human qualities in just how it interacts with us. And so it's highlighting the things that actually connect us, and highlighting the things that have us disconnected. And I wrote a piece not too long ago that and the line in the piece was, if we're not careful, AI is going to start to appear more human than we are. So we have to dig into, like, what makes us human, the creativity, the connection, the heart. And in a conference call I was on recently, the person who was facilitating it said that, it was basically painting this picture of, as coaches, we all need to make sure we embrace AI and use AI because AI is in some sense taking over. And during one of the introductions, one of the participants was sharing that her mother passed away. And then subsequently, someone else on the call said, "Hey, I'm really sorry about that. I lost someone too recently." And I was watching as this was being shared. There was obviously a connection. There was a feeling of empathy. And that's when I pointed out, I said, AI can't do that. AI cannot say, my mother died. Or my AI cannot say, I also lost someone, and connect with you human to human. And so there are some things that AI I just don't think is capable of. And here's the last thing I'm going to say. This, and I referenced this at the beginning of what I was saying, and that is, I was listening to a review of some research about how AI is being used to understand the language of whales. And the reason I really was moved by this was that they were talking about how there were patterns and there were complexity to the language that they had never seen before, that the researchers had never really picked up on, and started to understand the deep complexity of the communication between whales and how rich it was, and how it started to show how the whales were experiencing certain types of ways of interacting that people previously had only thought was reserved for humans. And so as I'm listening to this, I become really inspired, because I'm like, oh my gosh, AI is helping us understand the humanity of whales and our environment. And it gives us an opportunity to really start to value that other species on the planet are closer to us than we realize. And perhaps, obviously, the promise is one day we might be able to communicate. And to me, that is incredible.
Thank you,
So
Patrick. Brian?
Yeah, I'd like to jump in
Yes.
here. First of all, thank everyone for what you're sharing. This is a very challenging time for us individually and collectively for any number of reasons, and AI is certainly one of the catalysts there. And I want to really honor Patrick and others who have pointed out that we can approach AI as if it's human, or we can bring our humanity to our use of AI. And that's a choice we all have. And as Edgewalkers, that's a choice we also can offer to those we work with. AI doesn't have ethics. The ethics comes from how we choose to use it or allow it to be used. AI doesn't have empathy. AI doesn't have discernment. AI doesn't have wisdom. AI may know everything that's in our heads, but it can't replicate our hearts and our guts. And so, and oh, by the way, yes, Linda, AI is based on everything that's out there, some of it which is total BS. And so anytime I'm using AI, if it's not just to bounce some ideas off of, if it's to actually look for data, for facts, I not only ask for the sources, but I verify them. If it says this was in this issue of Architectural Digest, I go to that issue and say, is it there? AI is an incredible library, but it is not a replacement for human wisdom. The thing that most scares me, and I forget who mentioned that we tend to treat one another like machines. Our entire organizational world is built on the machine model. And those who are saying AI can replace people in organizations are perpetuating that model by saying now we'll replace the people in the machine with the technology in the machine. For me, AI is an incredible catalyst for us to totally rethink the future of work in a way that brings our wisdom and our humanity back into it.
Beautifully said, Brian. I really love what you said. Can I build on that a little bit? You're right, actually. I mean, I was in the AI in 1989 in Apple. I was one of the first guys who looked at AI when there was no generative AI. I was trying to interview people. We interviewed like 17 Nobel laureates and all kinds of people and try to take their knowledge and put it into expert systems. So we researched brain researchers and some of them. But what I learned was we cannot actually, after talking to 200 people, we found out what people say doesn't have much to do with their expertise, but it has more to do with what they think they know, what they think they have expertise in. Like when I talk to master teachers and I ask them, what are the qualities that make you a master teacher? And can you help me to learn those qualities so that I can be a master teacher? Many of the times what they said doesn't help somebody else to become a master teacher or a master gardener or a master whatever. So we try to put all these things we learned from various extraordinary people in the world. We created rules and put them into Prolog and Lisp and these systems, which, by the way, now automatically we do it by big data, all of this. We found out the cognitive models and the conscious knowledge that we have is not really conscious. That's mostly unconscious and on autopilot. We make the rules based on whatever is our life experiences, even though the rules we make have nothing to do with the narrative, because the feeling is completely ignored. The heart is completely forgotten. The spirit is completely missing. So for me, now when I look at, at that time, at least some of us were doing it by hand. Now it is completely done by dumping, billions and trillions of data automatically through all these processes into AI. If you are afraid of AI, you know what? I think you need to learn a little bit more about what it is and what it is not. I think one of you said very clearly, it is not at all conscious. It is not empathetic. It is not intelligent. But we ascribe those qualities. Oh, when I'm doing with ChatGPT or Anthropic or something else, oh, it is so wonderful to respond, which just means you are looking at yourself in the mirror and you are ascribing all these quantities to the image that you see in the mirror. Mirror doesn't have those quantities. Your image doesn't have those quantities. You have them. We forget that it is just a reflection, but with a lot of data, a lot of lights. So to come to a next point, I would say is the consciousness. I think I love some of you mentioning that AI is giving us a chance to rediscover who we are as human beings, whether we are conscious human beings or we are human beings who are on autopilot and have forgotten how to be conscious, let alone be a conscious leader for that matter. I think that is the opportunity. So from that perspective, I also look at it from a spiritual angle. I'm a not just computer scientist, but also I am a philosopher from a Vedantic perspective. I found that in a Vedanta, in the philosophy, Indian philosophy, if I look at it, for me, I need to focus on where is this consciousness emerging from? Because the brain models that the AI is creating, the brain is like just a television display device, like the computer monitor you are watching where the Zoom call is taking place. That monitor doesn't have any intelligence, right? It is not news for us, but we forget. So the television doesn't have any channels. It doesn't have any broadcasting. It just is broadcasting. That's all. It's just a mirror of a different kind. So my sense is, if by looking into the mirror, if it makes me to be more human, if it makes me to connect with each other with empathy and compassion, and I come alive in being with you, like Linda mentioned about the court cases. You know what? I do a lot of reading and writing, but what I do when I use the AI is I even give a prompt right up front saying, I want only real cases. And I don't want you to look at a big picture. I want you to check and validate every reference, every citation that you are giving. And before you give me the output, validate every one of them. And if you don't validate, if you can't validate, I want you to remove it from my reference list. And I want you to remove it from the case list. And I also ask questions to the AI and say, you know what? I don't want you to write for me, but I want you to ask me some good questions that I can use to write so that I can be a better writer. And when you read what I have written, I want you to read as if you are my journal editor. You are the reviewer of the peer journal that I'm sending to, and tell me, where is it that I'm missing? What is it that I need to do more? What is it that I'm not conscious of or blindly doing something? With those aspects of it, what it is doing is suddenly the AI has become my consultant. It has become my editor. It has become my friend. It has become my reviewer. And it has become my, not just a mirror, but I know I am the source. I am the light. And I'm looking into the mirror consciously and leading myself. And because of that, my productivity has gone up a lot. Because of that, I am able to reach and do things that I could never do before, because I'm no longer treating AI as a friend or as a human. I'm not giving any kind of a, anthropocentric qualities to it. I'm looking at it as a fantastic, tool that I have in my hand, and I can burn, just like fire. I can burn some homes with it, or I can create a sacred fire and do my namaste or pranams to it. So I'm happy with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Prasad. It's interesting. There's a word that Val said that's just been sitting with me, and I think the word was divine or divinity. And when I think about all of this discussion, there's two things that I am kind of hovering around. One is my divine gifts, and the other is my divine inadequacies. So when I think about my divine gifts, it's the things that are uniquely me. Lewis, you said it, right? I want to be able to reach out and touch people. I want the humanity. Patrick, you said it. But I also want to understand what orcas are saying, because they're my spirit animal. And I think about this sense of, people are innately curious. I think every one of us is innately a storyteller, a writer, a connector, a healer. None of those things I want to turn over. And if a tool can help me understand patterns, that as a human, I am limited, I'm inadequate to be able to understand vast amounts of data or patterns. Or I'll give you a very specific example. At work, someone asked me, can you come up with what they call a power prompt, right? And a power prompt in my world is something that will give people thousands of hours back, right? Millions of dollars of savings. And I said, yeah, let me try. Let me think. Let me think about something that takes up a lot of time for me individually that I wish I had more time to do other things. And then let me scale it across tens of thousands, 20,000 people. And what I came up with was a power prompt that allowed me as a manager to do my own end of year reflection in performance management, if you want to think about it that way, that normally would take me 3 to 4 hours to do. And what I was able to do is put in this power prompt that essentially did the humanly impossible, which is I told it to go look at all of my emails for the entire year, go look at every Teams chat I've ever had for the entire year, go look at every set of meeting notes that I've ever had. And through the lens of what I told it to look through, I told it, I want you to look through it, these 4 values. I want you to look at it through the goals that I set in the beginning of 2025. And only through that lens, I want you, inhuman tool, to objectively tell me where I did well, where I might have fallen short, and where I have opportunities, objectively. And what was really interesting is I separated myself out of the emotion of the exercise of having to go through and assess myself a million times over. And it presented it back to me. And it illuminated some things. It affirmed some things I already knew. And it actually countered some things, some of my own biases, all based on, as you said, Prasad, a set data set, right? I didn't tell it to go scan the world. I told it very specifically. And still, you have to validate it. To Linda's point, you still must validate it. I was born and raised to trust but verify, right? 2 naval officers' parents, they were like, trust but verify. And the last thing I'll share with you is the data that, again, trust but verify. OpenAI and Anthropic, they're starting to put out these reports, right? Just this week, OpenAI released how people are using ChatGPT. Again, trust but verify. I would not trust the authors that are benefiting from the tool. However, it's an interesting indicator. 49% of people that are using ChatGPT are using it in a category they call asking. Now, the other categories are doing and expressing. But to me, this tells me exactly what you, Val, John, Lewis, Patrick, others have said, which is almost 50% of the 700 million users a week of this tool are coming from a place of curiosity, of questions, of wanting to know more. And Prasad, to your point, the answers that they're getting back are not sufficient, which is why they keep coming back and asking questions. And my hope in conversations like this is that we can make ourselves available to the people that keep going to this inanimate object, keep hitting the keyboard and hoping that it loves them back. And it won't, it can't, it shall not. And we have to be there for them when that letdown happens. That's our obligation. That's why I talk about chief consciousness officers are the way of the future. The corporations are going to have to figure this out. The only thing that's going to set them apart is something like a chief consciousness officer that causes people to want to work at that company. Otherwise, it's all machine and robots, and we're out. So thanks for letting me share that. And I really appreciate the listening that I was able to do from you all, because I feel so much more nourished in this conversation. Thank you.
Ximena, you want to say something about your perspective?
I'm going to try to talk in a comprehensible manner, because my mind is just listening to everyone, and there's so many different levels to my thoughts, and it's like popcorn. All right. So, and I know that we're coming up to wrap up our session. I'll say the latest thing that has come to my mind, because I can't recount everything that's come to my mind, is listening to everyone. It highlights the practice of choosing and of discernment. For example, I could talk, like every one of your contributions, every one of them could be the subject of an hour-long, 2-hour-long, conversation. No, and so their choice is listening. No, the choice is, where do I want to, what do I want to amplify? Like, what do I want to, what's the word? Where do I want to focus my energy? Where do I want to focus? What do I want to dive deep into? My use of AI has, for example, in my dissertation, it has cut down the time that I used to spend going down rabbit holes. Like, I love learning. I am infinitely curious. And when you're writing a dissertation, that doesn't necessarily help you write a dissertation. So, when in one of those rabbit holes, I realized, like, the time that AI is helping me cut allows me then to choose, okay, where do I want to spend my time? Where do I want to spend that extra, sometimes half an hour, other times a week, that I used to go on these, down these rabbit holes. Now I have this time in my hands, that allows me to maybe go to bed earlier, or to go take a walk, or, so so that, the thing about choice, like, choosing to verify your sources or not, because you have, like, the tool allows you, it can provide all this, all this information, hallucinations and everything, but you have to make the choice of not verifying the sources. And all of this, this idea of having to choose, of having the opportunity and the responsibility of choosing, augments the agency that I have as a human being, and so, so that's one thing. Another thing that I've been, that I gather from what everyone is saying, is to ask myself, what do I value in human beings? What is it about humans that I value? And how do I define what a human being is? So again, like, I'll put it in the context of my doctoral work. I'm done with my doctoral education, because I've been trying to do this dissertation for years, and so with AI, I actually have a chance to actually finish it. And I'm allowing myself, like, for me, these tools are helping me meet certain needs that haven't been met in the past. And I know that my dissertation is not going to be groundbreaking. It's not going to solve, like, the problems of the world, but I know that it will make some people think, because I've had those conversations in person and I've seen how people react. But I cannot understand why, when I sit in front of my computer and I try to write it in the format, in the language of a dissertation, I can't get my thoughts out. And so, and so I ask, does this mean that I don't belong? Like, and for me, as an international student, a doctoral degree confers higher value than if I were, you know, an American, or if I were, from from a Western country. So it's for me to be able to have a chance of even challenging people, of challenging the status quo. Those tools are helping me, like scaffold. It's like, okay, and translate and in terms of translate, it's not the language per se. It's like all these thoughts that are just all over, and plus it's mixed with feelings of inadequacy, mental health issues, like unique learning styles that are labeled as neurodivergent, which it's a whole nother conversation. So it's this constant asking of, can I harness, like, or are these tools helping me harness and package what is in my mind in a way that I can have an equal to equal conversation with others, who for whatever reason already speak like that, or already think linearly. I'm the opposite of linear, even like just, the way that I'm speaking. So that's, that's what I have to say. I have so much more to say, but I'll stop there. And yeah, because I also want to, be mindful of the time, and there are just a couple of announcements that I want to make before we close. Well, first of all, just a big thank you, like to everyone who's joined, and it's a lesson learned for me that when I kind of let go of the planning and making all these, having the questions, like this has been for me the most enjoyable conversation, session for me, as because I kind of started, kicked off as a facilitator in these conversations. So anyway, so a big thank you for that. Some announcements. So Edgewalkers International is hosting a retreat and gathering October 22nd through the 24th. I'm going to put the link in the chat. This is in the past, Edgewalkers used to meet in person, and because of the pandemic, everything went online. And so this is really the first in-person gathering that Judy and company are organizing. And there is a facilitator gathering the first 2 days, and then there's an open to the public also gathering as well. Next Thursday, September 25th, there's an Edgewalkers Cafe with Patricia Campanale and Hendrik Becerra. Both of them are Edgewalker facilitators. The topic is the space between leading teams through what's ending and what's emerging. Open to the public, free. I'll also put the link in the chat. And also, so as Louis mentioned, I'm part of the Conscious Leadership Guild, and this is a group of people. We touch upon there are many different circles of conversation, but one of them is AI, like at the intersection of AI and conscious leadership. It is open to the public. The next conversation is next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to put the link in the chat. So it's an open conversation as well to continue exploring this topic. And so, yes, I'll stop there. Prasad, Bill, Brian, everyone, I don't know if anyone has any last comments. So please.
This did my heart good.
Brian, anything you want to say? No? Okay. Is there anybody in the room on the Zoom who wants to make some closing comments? No?
Yes.
Please. Go
I
ahead.
love the combination when people with such intelligence and spirit and consciousness are able to speak in ways that instead of my using my intelligence to understand them, I can use my heart to feel them. Thank you.
Yeah. For me, some of you might know, but I was just on the Himalayas, the Mount Kailash and Manasarovar. I was there for 15 days in Nepal and Tibet, and hiking with no computers, no phones. And then this is the event that I'm attending. So I feel like somehow being in nature, being with you, and connecting with the computer somehow seems like a natural flow. There is a lot of spirit, but it is not out there. It is in me and in you. And together, we make what we do to be much more meaningful and spiritual. And I think AI can help a lot as long as we don't mistake AI to be anything other than what it is, just a machine. So I love the connections we made again today. And thank you for being here, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you all. Be well.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Ximena.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Take care.